I want to start today with a scenario that I think is going to feel uncomfortably familiar to a lot of you.
Okay.
It's that really specific, heavy feeling of having done the work, but not feeling the result. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I've read the entire self-help library, but I'm still stressed
That's
paradox.
exactly that.
Mhm.
I'm picturing someone, and maybe this is you listening, who has read every single book on the bestseller list. They've done the therapy.
Mm-hmm.
They've journaled until their hand cramped up. They know their attachment style, anxious avoidant, probably. They know their Enneagram number, their Myers-Briggs. They have this incredible, sophisticated vocabulary for their own internal world.
They have the map, they have the compass, and they have the flashlight. They have all the gear.
Right, all the tools. But then, Monday morning rolls around, they walk into the kitchen, their partner says something in a tone that is maybe, 10% sharper than usual?
Just a slight edge to it.
Or they open an email from their boss that's just a little bit vague, and
Yeah.
boom, the stomach knots up instantly, the chest gets tight, and the whole spiral starts.
And that's the moment of frustration.
The ultimate frustration.
Oh.
Because the thought is, I know why I'm spiraling. I can literally name the childhood wound this is triggering. I can name the cognitive distortion. So why is the tension still there? Why is my body still reacting like this?
That is the gap. It is the huge chasm between intellectual insight and actual physiological relief. And frankly, that gap is where most people, I think, they give up.
Yeah, you just feel broken.
It leads to this internal monologue, right? I must not be doing this whole healing thing right, or I must be fundamentally broken beyond repair because I have all the knowledge, but I don't have any of the peace.
It feels like a failure of effort. It feels like if I just journaled harder or meditated more, I wouldn't be feeling this way.
But the stack of research and writing we are diving into today, which really centers around this concept of inner astrology and using astrology to truly know yourself, it suggests that the problem isn't a lack of effort at all. You aren't failing at healing.
Okay, so what is it?
The problem is one of orientation.
Orientation. What do you mean by that?
Well, we usually come to these tools, whether it's psychology or, in this context, astrology, looking for identity. We want to know, who am I? What's my personality? What is my soul's purpose?
We want the label.
We want the label. We treat the birth chart like it's a description of a character in a novel.
I am a Leo, therefore I am dramatic. I am an introvert, so I must hate parties. We use it to define the box we're supposed to live in.
Precisely. But the source material we're breaking down today proposes a really radical shift. It suggests we shouldn't be looking for who we are. We should be looking how we survive.
Wow, okay, that is a huge distinction.
It changes everything. I mean, the whole mission of this deep dive today is to reframe the birth chart. And really, your entire personality structure, not as a description of your soul or your fixed character, but as survival structure.
So we're moving from psychological analysis
To nervous system regulation.
I love this because it immediately, right off the bat, takes the shame out of it. It's not about some deep character flaw. It's about biology.
Exactly.
But before we go any further, nervous system regulation is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot these days. It's all over social media.
Yeah.
Can we just ground that for a second? What does it actually mean in the context of our personality?
It's so crucial we define that, yes, because it's misunderstood. Regulation doesn't just mean being calm or being zen. That's a huge misconception.
Okay.
Regulation means having an appropriate response. So if a tiger walks into this room right now, the regulated, healthy response is for your heart rate to spike, your pupils to dilate, and for you to run or fight. That is your nervous system working perfectly.
Right. I don't want to be meditating if there's a tiger in the room.
You do not. Dysregulation is when the tiger leaves, but your heart is still pounding 4 hours later. Or, much more commonly in our modern lives, when there is no tiger, just an email, and your body reacts as if you're about to be eaten.
So what we're really going to unpack here is the idea that what we call me, my personality, my quirks, my automatic reactions, is actually a brilliant biological strategy to manage all of those perceived tigers.
Precisely. We are going to explore why you act the way you do, not because you're difficult or neurotic or any of those other labels we put on ourselves, but because at some point, long before you had words for it, your body learned that this specific way of being was the only way to stay intact.
Stay intact. That phrase feels very visceral. It implies there was a very real threat of falling apart.
And for a child, there always is. The stakes are that high.
Okay, let's get into this then. The first really big concept we need to tackle is this idea of reframing personality as survival. The source material makes a really bold claim here. It says that what we call our personality isn't actually a stable thing.
Yeah.
It feels stable to us, but it's actually contextual behavior.
Yeah, we tend to speak in these absolutes about ourselves, don't we? I am a shy person. I am an aggressive person. I am a calm person.
We treat them like fixed traits.
Like they're our blood type or the color of our eyes. But if you really, and I mean really observe yourself closely, like if we followed you around with a camera for a full day, you'd see that's just not true.
Oh, absolutely. I can see that so clearly in my own life.
Yeah.
I can be the most confident, loud, outgoing person in the room with my two best friends.
Yeah.
But you put me in a networking event with 100 people I don't know, and I basically turn into a piece of furniture. I will find a wall and merge with it. I'm a completely different person.
Exactly that. You might be totally calm and relaxed in your living room, but then you get on a crowded subway and you're hyper-vigilant, scanning every face.
Or you could be a leader at work, decisive, strong, in control. And then you go home and feel completely collapsed, totally unable to make a simple decision about what to have for dinner.
That variability is the key. That's the crack that lets the light in. It reveals that your personality isn't your core essence. It is a dynamic response to the environment.
So the chart, or our psychological profile, whatever tool we're using, isn't saying, this is who you are forever and ever, amen.
No, it's saying this is how your system learned to handle specific conditions. It's a map of adaptation. The source uses this really beautiful phrase, this is how your system learned to stay intact.
And this brings us to the origins of this structure, which is so important. We have to remember that these patterns, these so-called personality traits, they form long before conscious choice even exists.
Yeah.
We're talking about infancy, very early childhood.
Right, before the thinking brain is even really online, the nervous system is learning it's this incredible biological machine, and its only job is to scan for safety. That's its prime directive.
And what does it scan for?
It's learning what is safe, what is dangerous, what makes my caregiver smile and lean in, what makes them yell or get tense, what makes them walk away. The source really emphasizes that the nervous system prioritizes connection above almost everything else.
Why connection specifically?
Because for a human infant, disconnection equals death. It's that primal.
That's a heavy concept, but it makes perfect sense from a biological standpoint. We can't hunt for ourselves. We can't run from predators. We absolutely need the caregiver to survive.
We are born essentially useless. We need the adult for food, for warmth, for safety. So the nervous system logs maintain connection at all costs as the primary survival directive.
Okay, so let's make this really concrete. If I'm a child and I grow up in a house that's, say, really chaotic, maybe there's a lot of yelling, it's unpredictable, I don't sit down to decide to become a super responsible, organized person.
Correct. You don't hold a little board meeting with yourself at age 3 and say, okay, team, our new strategy is going to be hyper-responsibility. Your nervous system just notices that when you are quiet and organized and you don't make a fuss, you fly under the radar. You stay safe. Or maybe it notices that when you take charge of your little sibling, the chaos subsides, just for a moment.
And that feels like relief.
It feels like relief. So responsibility emerges as a survival response to chaos. It's not a choice, it's a reflex.
Or what about the other way? If I have a parent who gets really stressed out or overwhelmed when I cry or show big, messy emotions,
Then your system learns a very simple equation. Emotion disrupts connection. It learns if I cry, mom pulls away or gets tense. If I'm stoic and quiet, mom stays close and seems relaxed.
so you develop a personality of being stoic or rational or maybe even unemotional.
It's not who you are, it's what worked. It was the successful strategy to keep the primary attachment figure close.
And the crucial part here, which the source material really hammers home, is that these are embodied patterns. They aren't mental decisions.
This is maybe the most important takeaway. This is why you can't just think your way out of them. You can't reason with a reflex. It's like, if I throw a ball at your face, you're going to flinch.
I'm going to flinch.
You don't decide to flinch. These personality structures are just flinches that got stuck. They were built by the nervous system, not the rational brain. So rational arguments like telling yourself, I shouldn't be so defensive, they just don't penetrate that deep embodied layer.
That is so incredibly validating. It removes so much self-blame.
Yeah.
It also really sets the stage for looking at something like the birth chart in a totally different way.
Absolutely.
We're not looking at a horoscope anymore. We're looking at what you call a map of constraint.
A map of constraint and compensation. Those are the two key words we have to hold.
Okay, let's define compensation in this context.
Yeah.
Because usually when we hear that word, it has a negative ring to it, like, oh, he's driving that big truck to overcompensate for something.
Right, it's used as an insult. But in this structural view, compensation is totally neutral. I'd even argue it's positive. It simply means this. Something essential was missing or unreliable, so the system built a workaround.
A workaround.
It's like a detour. If the main bridge on your commute is out, you build a ferry to get across the river. The ferry is the compensation. It's not as efficient as the bridge, it takes more energy, but it gets you where you need to go. It works.
So if we look at a birth chart, or even just a person's life story, we can start to see where the bridges were out.
Yes. The source gives some fantastic examples. Let's say mirroring was unreliable. Mirroring is that thing a parent does where they reflect back your emotional state. You smile, they smile back. You cry, they look concerned and engaged. It's how you learn that you exist and that your feelings are real.
So what happens if that's missing?
If that was missing or inconsistent, the child might become hyper-observant.
Why? What does that do?
Because if no one is seeing me, I have to see everyone. If I watch you closely enough, I can predict what you're going to do. I can anticipate your moods. It gives me a sense of control and safety, even if I'm not being seen.
Okay, that makes sense. What about another example?
What if comfort was inconsistent? Sometimes when you were upset, you were held and soothed. Other times you were ignored or told to stop crying.
The system can't rely on it?
It can't, so the child might become self-contained. They learn.
Sure.
I cannot rely on the outside world for regulation, so I will lock it all down inside. I will soothe myself. I will need no one.
And if the environment was just generally unpredictable?
Then the child often becomes controlling.
Ah, control. The big one.
Control is a massive compensation for a lack of safety. The logic is simple. If I can control my environment, I won't be surprised. If I'm not surprised, I won't be hurt. So they become little organizers, planners, micromanagers.
This brings up a really interesting tension that the source discusses. This paradox between brilliance and constraint. Because on one hand, you have to admit these strategies are genius.
They are brilliant adaptations. We have to honor that first and foremost. If you grew up in an emotional or literal war zone and you learned to be hyper-vigilant, that vigilance saved you. It kept you safe. It allowed you to navigate a minefield without getting blown up. That is biological brilliance.
But there's always a but.
But adaptation always narrows possibility. That is the cost. That is the constraint.
What do you mean by narrows possibility?
If your adaptation is to be hypervigilant, you cannot be relaxed. The state of relaxation is not available to you. If your adaptation is to be self-contained, you cannot easily receive help or intimacy. That state is closed off.
Right.
You survive, yes, but your range of motion, your range of being becomes very, very small.
And that narrowing is what we experience later in life as things feeling hard. It's not that life is hard, it's that our toolkit is small.
Yes. Life feels hard, not because the world is inherently impossible, but because we're trying to navigate a vast, complex landscape with a very limited set of tools that were designed for one specific danger in the past, not for the open possibilities of the present.
That is such a huge aha moment. It's like we're all walking around wearing heavy winter coats because it was freezing when we were 5 years old, and now it's the middle of summer and we're sweating and exhausting ourselves, wondering why everyone else looks so comfortable.
That is the perfect analogy, and nowhere is this more evident, astrologically speaking, than when we look at the moon.
Okay, let's go there. Section 3, the moon. This really feels like the centerpiece of this entire inner astrology approach. Because in pop astrology, the moon is usually just described as your emotions or your inner self.
Yeah, which is fine, but it's a bit vague.
This source completely redefines it.
It does. It moves away from the general idea of emotions, and it relabels the moon as regulation, and even more specifically, the capacity to rest.
Regulation. We defined that earlier as the ability to match the response to the moment. But what does it mean to say the moon is the capacity to rest?
It means the fundamental ability of your nervous system to return to a baseline of safety, to come home. It's the ability to settle, to really, truly, deeply settle. The source argues that the moon sign and its aspects points to the precise place where we didn't get enough modeling on how to do that.
So the moon represents a kind of core deficit.
In a way, yes, or maybe a core question. It points to the specific flavor of unsettledness that we carry in our bodies. And the source makes this really profound point here. Many, many people were loved. They were encouraged. They had good childhoods by all standard definitions.
Right.
But they never learned how to settle their nervous systems.
I think this is going to resonate with so many people listening. The people who say, my parents are great, I had a happy childhood, so why am I so anxious all the time?
Because you can be deeply loved without being regulated. Maybe your parents were anxious people themselves. Maybe they were loving but were high-functioning workaholics who were always stressed and they taught you how to cope, how to achieve, how to manage, how to be a good person.
But they didn't teach you how to stop.
They didn't model what a nervous system looks like when it is completely, utterly at rest. Without that blueprint, the child's system doesn't know what that state even feels like.
So we learn to function, but not to rest.
Right. And the moon sign in the chart marks the place where rest became conditional.
Conditional rest. That's a chilling phrase. What does that mean?
It means you can only turn off the internal alarm system if certain conditions are met. The off switch isn't freely available. It's locked behind a prerequisite.
Can we break this down by element? I think that really helps people visualize it.
Yeah.
What would this look like for, say, an Earth moon, a Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus moon?
Okay, yeah. For an Earth moon, especially Capricorn or Virgo, the condition for rest is usually competence or completion. The internal monologue is, I can rest when the work is done.
I'll relax when I get through my to-do list.
I can rest when everything is in its proper place, when the house is clean, when the emails are answered, when the project is finished.
But the work is never done. The to-do list is infinite.
Exactly. There is always another email. There's always another load of laundry. There's always another problem to solve. So the Earth-Moon system stays in a state of low-level chronic activation, constantly waiting for a finish line that doesn't exist. They are perpetually scanning the environment for what is broken, what is messy, what is incomplete.
That sounds exhausting.
It's deeply exhausting.
Okay, what about an air moon? Gemini, Libra, Aquarius.
For air moons, particularly Libra, the condition for rest is often harmony or consensus. The inner rule is, I can rest when everyone else is happy.
Oh, wow.
I can rest when there's no conflict in my immediate environment, when no one is upset with me.
But that is an impossible task. You can't control other people's moods.
Precisely. So the Libra moon becomes this hyper-attuned emotional radar dish, constantly scanning the room. Is mom sighing in the kitchen? Is my partner being a little too quiet? Did my boss sound annoyed on that call? Until the social atmosphere is perfectly smooth and frictionless, their nervous system cannot power down. They might be sitting on the couch watching TV, but inside, their whole system is vibrating with social anxiety.
And water moons, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. What's their condition?
For a water moon like Scorpio, the condition is often certainty or depth. The rule is, I can rest when I know the truth. I can rest when I have uncovered the secret, the hidden agenda.
So if there's any ambiguity, they can't settle.
Ambiguity feels incredibly unsafe to them. They need to know what's really going on under the surface. They can't stand small talk or superficiality.
They become detectives of the emotional atmosphere.
Yes. Because to them, the surface level feels like a trap. It feels fake. If they can't see the bottom of the lake, they assume there's a monster hiding in it, so they can't rest until they've dredged the entire lake to make sure it's safe.
Which, again, is an endless task.
Endless.
And finally, fire moons. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius.
For fire moons, the condition for rest is often expression or validation. I can rest when I have been seen. I can rest when I have made an impact on my environment.
When my presence has been acknowledged.
Exactly. If they feel ignored, invisible, or stagnant, the alarm bells start ringing. Their system equates invisibility with non-existence, which is a survival threat. So they need to create, to perform, to move, to be recognized in order to feel safe enough to settle.
And all of this, for every sign, creates what the source material calls baseline tension.
This is such a huge concept. Baseline tension is when that state of chronic alertness becomes so normalized that you don't even feel it anymore. You've been tense for so long, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, that you just think, this is who I am.
You think it's your personality? I'm just a high-energy person, or I'm just a worrier, or well, I just don't like sitting still.
When actually your body is stuck in a low-level, perpetual fight-or-flight mode. You think it's a personality preference, but it's actually a biological inability to find and trust the off switch for the alarm.
And the beauty of this inner astrology approach, as you call it, is that it doesn't pathologize that. It doesn't slap a label on you and say, you have an anxiety disorder, and that's the end of the story.
No.
It says your system is doing exactly what it learned it had to do to survive.
Yeah.
It gives you the why. It explains the origin of the tension, and once you truly understand the origin, you can stop fighting the symptom. You realize the tension isn't the enemy. It's an old friend who is still trying to protect you from a danger that is long gone.
This leads us directly into what I think is maybe the most relatable part of this entire deep dive, the paradox of capability.
Mm.
Because we're talking about these survival structures, and it all sounds very difficult and desperate, but the result is often people who look incredibly successful and put together on the outside. Yes, the exhaustion of the capable.
Yeah.
This is a very specific profile, and I think a lot of your listeners will recognize themselves here. We are talking about the people who are the rock for everyone else in their lives.
The strong friends.
The strong friends, the responsible ones. They are emotionally intelligent. They are hyper-adaptable. They're the ones you call in a crisis because you know they'll handle it.
And their survival structures are precisely what made them that way.
Exactly. If you learned very early on that you had to manage your parents' emotions to stay safe, you become an adult who is an absolute expert at reading and managing everyone's emotions. You are highly capable.
But there's a massive hidden cost.
The cost is that these qualities, this capability, it's all powered by effort, not by natural inherent flow. It takes an enormous amount of energy to maintain a survival structure.
The source uses an analogy I love. It's like holding a beach ball underwater.
It is. You can do it. You can get really good at it. You can even have a conversation and smile while you're doing it. But a huge percentage of your mental and physical energy is being dedicated 24/7 to just holding that ball down.
And that leads to what the source calls existential fatigue.
Right. And it's important to distinguish this. This is not normal physical tiredness. It's not the kind of tired you feel after a good workout at the gym. It's a deep, soul-level weariness.
Can you describe it more?
The source describes it as the tiredness that comes from the continuous, nonstop effort of maintaining your own survival structure. You are, in effect, tired of being you because being you is a full-time, high-stress job that you can never clock out of.
Wow. Tired of being you. I think that is going to hit hard for a lot of people. And this links directly to the ascendant, right? In traditional astrology, the ascendant is often just called the mask.
Yes, but mask can imply something fake or deceptive, which isn't quite right. The source prefers to call the ascendant the social interface, or my favorite, the armor.
The armor. Okay, so how does the ascendant function in this survival model? What is its job?
The ascendant is how the system learned to appear safe in the world. It's the front door to your house. It's the gatekeeper. It's the carefully curated set of behaviors that allowed you to navigate the outside world with the least amount of friction and danger.
So if I have a Sagittarius ascendant, for example, maybe being funny and philosophical and kind of breezy was the way I learned to deflect conflict or intense emotions.
Exactly. The unconscious logic is, if I keep them laughing, they won't get angry at me. Or if you have a Scorpio ascendant, if I stay private and intense and don't let anyone get too close, they can't betray me.
So it's all a strategy.
It's all a strategy. Being pleasant reduces conflict. Being competent reduces the risk of being abandoned. Being distant reduces the potential for disappointment.
This explains that really common feeling people have where they say, I just don't relate to my ascendant sign, or when I act that way, I feel like a fraud.
Yes, that not me feeling is a huge clue. People read their ascendant description and say, that sounds like a performance. And the source material says, it is a performance.
But a necessary one.
A necessary one. It's not who you are at your core. It's who you had to become so that the moon, that vulnerable, tender, unregulated interior of you, wouldn't get overwhelmed and annihilated by the outside world.
The ascendant is the bodyguard for the moon.
Perfectly put. The ascendant is the bodyguard, and bodyguards are often big, tough, and look intimidating, even if the person they are protecting is incredibly soft and gentle on the inside.
So we have the moon, which is the internal regulation need, and the ascendant, the external defense. Now let's look at the tools we use to maintain this whole system. The source breaks down Mercury, Venus, and the descendant in a really fascinating, non-traditional way. Let's start with Mercury.
Okay, Mercury is traditionally the mind, right? Communication, intellect. But in a survival model, Mercury becomes the emergency response mind.
I love that phrase. It stops being about how smart you are, and it becomes how you use your brain to stay safe.
Exactly. It shows how our cognitive function was recruited by the nervous system to help stabilize our emotions. Think about the act of overthinking. We usually treat overthinking like a bad habit we need to break.
Just stop thinking so much.
Right. But from this perspective, it's a defense mechanism. The thinking is being used to preempt discomfort.
If I can think through every single possible negative scenario, I won't be caught off guard when one of them happens.
Right. Or what about explaining? How many of us feel a compulsive need to explain ourselves constantly? I'm late because the traffic was. I didn't mean to upset you. I was just.
That's not communication.
It's containment.
Yeah.
We're using words to try and contain the other person's potential negative reaction so that we can remain safe.
And what about replaying conversations over and over in your head?
That is the mind's attempt at preventing future surprise. The logic is if I replay that awkward conversation 100 times, I'll figure out exactly where I went wrong so I never make that mistake again. This isn't intellectual curiosity, it's nervous system management. Your brain is working overtime to try and control the uncontrollable, which is the future.
Okay, that's Mercury. Now, what about Venus? We usually think of Venus as romance, beauty, what we like.
But here, in this model, it's attachment as regulation.
Oof. Attachment is regulation.
This can be a tough pill to swallow for the romantics out there. This lens suggests that Venus reveals how we learn to seek safety and regulation through relationships. It suggests that many of our so-called romantic needs and desires are actually just attempts to get our nervous system regulated by another person.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Take a classic Venus pattern that looks like, I need constant reassurance and validation from my partner. Is that because you are just so full of poetic love?
Probably not.
Or is it because your nervous system literally requires that external validation to know that it's safe and that the connection is secure? Or the opposite, a Venus that needs a lot of space and freedom. Is that just a quirky preference? Or is it a deeply ingrained safety strategy because in your past, closeness equaled engulfment and was a threat to your integrity?
The source material has this line that just floored me. Attachment patterns often originate from a need for reassurance, attention, or approval, not poetic love.
And the trap is, when we don't understand this about ourselves and our partners, our relationships become battlegrounds for unmet regulation needs. We aren't really fighting about who left the dishes in the sink.
What are we fighting about?
We are fighting about regulation. You didn't text me back for 3 hours isn't about the text message. It's about my nervous system went into a panic spiral of abandonment and I needed your response to bring it back down.
That is profound. It reframes so much of relational conflict. So finally, we have the descendant. The ascendant is the armor. What is the descendant?
The descendant is the chink in the armor. It is the one point where all of our carefully constructed survival strategies fail.
Where they just stop working.
Yes. It's typically the sign opposite your ascendant. So if your ascendant strategy is, for example, I must be independent and strong and need no one, your descendant represents the point where that fierce independence collapses and you are forced to be vulnerable and rely on someone else.
And that must feel terrifying.
It feels like death to the survival structure. And that's why the descendant is so closely associated with our one-on-one relationships, especially partnerships. Relationships, by their nature, bypass our defenses.
They see behind the curtain.
They see behind the curtain. You can be cool, calm, and collected, your ascendant, at work all day, but your partner is the one who sees you in your pajamas crying over a sad dog commercial. They see the crack in the armor.
The source says, without awareness, this feels like betrayal. With awareness, it is structural exposure.
Structural exposure. That is the goal, ultimately. We want to be exposed. We want to be seen for who we really are. But because our entire survival structure was built to prevent exposure, because exposure used to be dangerous, it feels like a 5-alarm crisis when it happens.
So we've now mapped out this entire system. We see the moon as the core need, the ascendant as the protective wall, Mercury and Venus as the tools to maintain it, and the descendant as the inevitable failure point.
Yes.
Now, we get to the really tricky part. Because we have all this insight now, we understand the mechanics of it. But the source warns us very clearly about the trap of insight.
Which brings us right back to where we started in the intro. Why does knowing all of this sometimes make everything feel even worse?
Specifically, let's talk about aspects in the chart, the geometric angles between the planets. The source highlights hard aspects, like a Moon-Saturn square or a Moon-Pluto opposition, as areas of continuous effort.
Right. A hard aspect in this model represents a fundamental conflict in the survival strategy itself. Part of your system wants to hide and be safe, Saturn, but another part of you wants to be seen and emotionally expressive.
Moon.
So you're at war with yourself.
You are constantly expending energy just managing that internal civil war. It's like driving a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time.
So we go to therapy, or we study astrology, and we see this war with perfect clarity. We have the insight.
But the source has this critical line. Awareness without safety increases load.
Awareness without safety increases load. That needs to be on a billboard somewhere.
I agree. Think about it this way. If you are carrying a very heavy backpack, and I come along and I turn on the lights so you can see exactly how heavy it is, and I give you an itemized list of everything inside it, but I don't help you take it off.
You haven't helped me at all. I've actually made it worse. I haven't helped you. I've just made you hyper aware of your burden. Now you're still carrying the same weight, but you're also stressing out about why you're carrying it and feeling guilty that you can't put it down.
This explains so perfectly why some people feel worse after a period of intense self-work. They see the mechanism, they see the pattern, but the nervous system is still under the exact same constraints, so now they just feel more pressure.
The pressure of the
I should be able to put this down now that I understand it.
Exactly. The system hasn't received the new signal that it's actually safe to let go of the strategy yet. It just has a very detailed diagram of why it's holding on so tightly.
So what is the solution then? If insight isn't enough, what is? This is where the source introduces this really beautiful, if counterintuitive, concept of non-interference.
This is the answer, and it is counterintuitive. Healing, the source argues, begins with non-interference, not with more effort or more change.
But that's the opposite of what we're taught. We think healing means change. We think, I see the pattern, now I must break the pattern. I must stop being defensive. I must force myself to be less anxious.
We try to muscle our way into healing. We try to wage war on our own patterns.
Which is just another form of aggression against ourselves.
It's just another survival strategy. The new strategy becomes, if I can fix myself perfectly, then I'll finally be safe and lovable. It's the same logic, just with a wellness gloss on it.
So what is non-interference then? How does it work?
Non-interference simply means allowing the response to exist without trying to correct it or judge it immediately. It means you notice the tension rising in your chest, you notice the urge to be defensive, you notice the wave of anxiety, and you just let it be there for a moment.
That sounds incredibly passive. It sounds like giving up.
It feels that way at first, but it is the most active thing you can do. It's not passive resignation, it's nervous system recalibration. It's about sending a new signal to your body.
What's the new signal?
Look, if you feel anxious and you immediately try to crush the anxiety or distract yourself from it, you are reinforcing the old message. You are telling your body, this feeling is dangerous. We are not safe. Red alert. You are adding a layer of tension on top of the existing tension.
But if I feel anxious and instead I turn toward it and I say, okay, anxiety is here. That makes sense. My body is trying to protect me. And I just sit with it.
You are sending a new revolutionary signal to your body. The signal is, I am big enough to hold this feeling. This feeling is not a threat to my existence. And that, right there, is the definition of creating internal safety.
The source makes a distinction. Survival keeps you alive. Safety allows you to rest.
Yes. The goal is to move from surviving brilliantly, which is what we've all been doing, to finally feeling safe. And you cannot force safety. You can't strong-arm your nervous system into relaxing. You can only allow safety to emerge slowly by stopping the war against your own natural reactions.
It's the difference between a parent yelling at a crying child, stop crying right now, versus a parent who sits down next to the child, puts a hand on their back and says, I know it's really hard. I'm right here with you.
Exactly. And most of us are shouting, stop crying, at our own internal children all day long. Non-interference is the radical act of sitting down on the floor next to that part of ourselves and just saying, I'm here.
That brings such a deep sense of relief. I mean, it's like a physical weight lifting off my shoulders just talking about it.
And that relief is the whole point. That leads us to the ultimate takeaway of this entire deep dive.
The deepest relief.
The relief comes from the profound realization that your survival structure is not your essence. You are not your defensiveness. You are not your anxiety. You are not your people-pleasing.
Those are just the clothes you had to wear to get through the storm. They're not your skin.
Yes. They are a brilliant response to past conditions. And once you truly deeply get that in your bones, you can stop asking that painful question, what is wrong with me? And you can start asking a much kinder, more curious question. What did I learn to do to stay intact?
That shift, just that one shift in the question from I'm broken to I'm adaptive is everything.
It quiets the internal fight. And when the fight against yourself finally quiets down, you gain space. There's suddenly room to breathe. And in that quiet space, gentleness can finally enter.
The source ends with this beautiful thought about the difference between inhabiting your life rather than just enduring it. And I think so many of us, if we're honest, are just enduring our personalities. We're enduring our days.
We are managing our survival structures. That's our full-time job. We are the technicians of our own armor, but we aren't really living inside our own bodies. We're just operating the machinery.
So here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with, to carry with you today.
We've talked a lot about the past, about how these structures were formed, but all the power to change is right here in the present moment.
So the question is this. If you stopped viewing your personality as a fixed, solid identity, this idea of I am this, I am that, and instead you started viewing it as a tired, loyal nervous system that is just trying to protect you, how would you treat yourself differently in the next hour?
If you felt that familiar tightness in your chest or that compulsive urge to over-explain yourself, and instead of judging it or trying to fix it, you silently thanked it for trying so hard to save you, what would happen to the tension?
Would you push through the fatigue one more time, or would you give yourself permission to rest for 5 minutes? Would you criticize the anxiety, or would you offer it a seat and a cup of tea?
It's an experiment in gentleness, and according to this work, it's the only path that can turn a survival structure back into a life.
Thank you for diving deep with us.
Take good care of yourself.